I'm here today with Randy Cohen, who writes the Ethicist column in the New York Times Magazine. And we are going to chat a little bit about maybe the ethics of transportation. How did you get interested or involved in transportation? Ethics
Primarily concerns itself with the effect of our actions on other people, especially when you live close together in a city. It's very easy for one person's actions to have a profound effect on one another, and it seemed to me what was significantly undermining the ordinary daily happiness and health and economic life of both me and my fellow New Yorkers was the private car. We're becoming a nation of fatties, in part because if you live anywhere but a few cities and you want a quart of milk, you have to take the car.
When I got my first full-time job, I lived in Washington, D.C., and I commuted practically out to Baltimore. And it was about a 50-minute drive every day, each way. And I don't think, I did this for 2 years, I don't think it occurred to me for a moment that I was doing anything wrong. And now recently, I'm much more conscious of my actions, and every time I get in a car, I kind of think about the consequences. So what are the things that people are supposed to be conscious of?
If you leave these kind of decisions to matters of individual moral choice, I think there's no solution possible. For 2 years, you as a sophisticated, educated person, aware of your world, you were doing actions that now seem questionable to you. If we leave it to individual moral choice, here's what people will do. They'll buy SUVs. Yes? There's no law that says you have to buy an inefficient car, or that you have to buy a car that's particularly vile, that its moral implications are vile, and by which I mean SUVs are more likely to harm other people than other cars. But if we as a culture, as a country, as a society, are capable of making wise policy choices.
I know people who live in the city, who drive around the city to do, even simple errands. What's wrong with that?
Everything. The word we ethicists use to describe the kind of the philosophy your friend is espousing, that's called being selfish. What's wrong with it is they knock me down when I ride my bike. What's wrong with it is they pollute the air. What's wrong with it is the fumes from their cars destroy the facades of buildings. It imposes this tremendous expense simply to maintain the roads, and is particularly vile, morally indefensible in New York City, where there's excellent mass transit. There's absolutely no need for the private car in Manhattan. Other parts of the city, it's a more ambiguous problem.
Right now, one of the big issues is congestion pricing. And the people who oppose it talk about it in terms of individual rights.
It would be misleading to say wise policy decisions never restrict individual freedom. They do. What civilization is the restriction of individual freedom. We have, for instance, fire codes. You can't build your apartment out of kerosene-soaked cardboard because it endangers other people. We have 1,000 laws that restrict what an individual can do because it is singularly destructive to the larger community. This one is an interesting policy in that so many members of the community so overwhelmingly gain. And the unfortunate consequences of the restrictions in freedom are so tiny. And it's so exciting because we have the actual examples of two major modern cities, London and Stockholm, where there was much objection to the plans, similar congestion pricing plans before they were introduced. And now we can look and see, well, did it work? That's great, that's pragmatism. And it seems to be quite a popular plan both places now.
I was talking to someone who had talked to several assembly members about this particular issue. And one of the things that they commented that all of the assembly members have placards, which allow them to park wherever they want, illegal or legal. Right. They all drive around the city almost exclusively. Their personal experience skews their judgment, because you tend to think everyone is like yourself.
I think that's true. In order just to be good at your job, whether you're a legislator or an administrator, you have to have a real intimate knowledge of how your decisions affect ordinary citizens.
Just about every elected official and a good fraction of the government workers in the city are given these placards.
A blight on the landscape, an act of such incivility, an act that so undermines ordinary democratic ideals. The legal use of it is bad enough. The abuse is truly astonishing. That there is on my corner a car that has been parking 2 or 3 times a week for the last, I'm guessing, 5 years. This fellow parks both with his front wheels in a crosswalk so that he's only a little bit too close to the fire plug, with a police permit on his dashboard. It is, of course, illegal for him to use that police permit in that way. It's the kind of permit that only allows you to park close to the precinct when you're going to work. It's a demoralizing bit of petty corruption and cronyism where no traffic enforcement officer will ticket this guy. I think to the mayor's credit, he's spoken forcefully about this and vowed to limit the number of these permits. He does not seem to have followed through very well on it. I like the mayor in many ways, but he also has his shortcomings, and one is, I think, this. That he's talked a good game about this, and I believe he's actually cut down on the number of permits given. But I see very little evidence that he's continued this.
I think the biggest problem with a city based on the automobile is actually invisible. It's the city that you don't see, the city that could be if it wasn't that way. It's a city where kids are playing stickball, and where if you're a parent and your 4-year-old walks out on the sidewalk, you're not terrified that they're going to go 4 more feet into the middle of speeding traffic and things like that.
We can have a kind of Jane Jacobs neighborhood, neighborhoods that are less dangerous, less threatening, where you can quite easily walk to work, where you can see your neighbors, where kids can play. One of the interesting challenges in the city is that public space, open space, is really at a premium. There's very little of it. And you have to make wise decisions about how you will allocate it. If any place where there's free parking on a New York City street, you go, well, why is this good for the city that you get to store your personal property in public space? I don't take my summer clothes, pack them in a Foot Locker, and leave them, out in Central Park. Why are we allocating a 4-foot wide strip down both sides of West End Avenue, a lovely residential area? Why is that where free parking for cars? Why is that not 2 rows of trees? Why would that not be better for the city?
Part of what you said is that as a society, we want to set up incentives for people to do good things.
Yes.
And so with biking, if the city says, biking is a green form of transportation, it's good for your health, all those sorts of things.
Terrific.
So then you have to make it safe.
Absolutely.
And you have to make a real...
Safe and convenient. You have to have some place to put your bike when you get to work, some place where maybe you can even take a shower every now and then. But many cities seem to have dealt with this problem in terrific ways, and we can do it too, and it's actually what... I hate being optimistic, it doesn't suit me, but it's true we're in a moment in New York history where both the Department of Transportation and the wonderful Jeanette Sadik-Khan, she seems terrific. The mayor seems genuinely sympathetic, and he seems to have other administrators in place who have an analysis of the city that's quite savvy. There is reason to be hopeful about biking.
Every now and then you get a glimpse of what the city could be like otherwise. Yes. It's like I don't know if you remember when there's a big blizzard or something and traffic is absolutely paralyzed, and you can just walk down the middle. I walk down the middle of 5th Avenue or something like that, and you're like, wow, what a fantastic city this is. Or when there was the blackout and kind of traffic is paralyzed. Like whenever that happens, people come out on the street and you see what could be.
Yes. People interacting in ways that seems to make everybody much happier. This is not, again, we're not preaching rectitude here, we're preaching hedonism. What we're talking about is how people can be happier, and I think with a capital H, in just in the ordinary happiness of daily life. That the automobile, maybe the greatest crime laid to it is it affronts that. It undermines our ordinary daily happiness in ways we've even ceased to notice. That's truly sad.